Welcome back to the Lightforge Darkmoon Faire Midnight Adventure, whatever. Madness at the Darkmoon Faire card valuation stream. This is ADWCTA.
This is Merps. We talked about the previous, or the best 4 neutral cards in the previous video, and now we're going to talk about the other relevant neutral cards.
Yes, these are the cards that you do want to draft, and you will see a lot. They are the backbone of your arena deck, because you can't pick the best cards in the arena. You only get 3 options. So these are going to make your way into every game. You're going to see these a lot. So let's go. There's going to be 13 cards in this zone, and we'll try to go through them quickly and stop at the ones that are kind of hard to understand. So the first one's going to be really quick because it's super simple. It's a Yeti that they chose to call a Circus Amalgam. It's 4 mana, 4/5 taunt. It's the first Yeti statted neutral we've had in quite a while, and it is an amalgam, which means it has all the minion types, including totems.
Yeah, look, it's a Yeti with taunt, so first of all, it's already better, and tribes are important. As you'll see, elementals matter, beasts matter, like a lot of demons really matter now.
All tribes matter.
All tribes matter. So when you're looking at something like Circus Amalgam, the value is going to be really high. You're going to be using that ability quite often, unlike previously when there was just Nightmare Amalgam and people just forgot about it. I forgot about it. You will not forget about Circus Amalgam these days.
Mm-hmm. And it's a common. You will see this everywhere. Okay, we're going to move on from this, but this is a 135. Like, this is overconfident orc levels of good. In case you're wondering. Like, I know we're putting it in here as like not premium, but it's almost a premium card, right? I mean, okay, I'll go one step further. It is a premium card.
Yeah.
It is a premium.
It's not broken.
It's not broken, but it is a premium card.
Sure.
Okay, next we have another common card. It is a 2 mana 3/2, so already normally on curve. It is Showstopper, and the ability is Death Rattle. Silence all minions. It's a 123.
123 gets it to around, actually, it's the exact same score as Cult Neophyte and Sneaky Delinquent.
And yeah, a two below Amani, 3 below Acidic Swamp Ooze, a few points, 5 points above Bomber. Like, it's in that area.
So it's good. It's about the average score of what you're going to have in your deck. The Showstopper is an effect that a lot of people look at and they're like, well, it doesn't silence them immediately. But a lot of death rattle effects, powerful death rattle effects and everything, even if you give your opponent the initiative, even if you give them that ability, there are big ones and there's also ones that they kind of have to like trade, in which it's fine to get that delay, or you are just able to put this out and then stop their kind of effects so that you have the initiative, right? Yeah. So such that they have to remove it and then they have to play it. It's just really good. Silence has become more and more important as the game has gotten weirder, not just about stats. So this is good. It's like an above average card, which is like what 123 is. It's like pretty good.
Yeah. So like just imagine, right? Like, they put down a Colossus. You're like, oh, what do I do? Put down a bunch of crap in a Showstopper, right? It doesn't matter what the Colossus does. The Showstopper is going to take out an extra 7/7 body, right? Like, that's kind of insane. It can also silence behind taunts. And also if your opponent plays something, you put the Showstopper out, it's going to silence it unless it's a death rattle that the guy can trigger the very next turn. Like, they can remove it and it still will silence it because they can't stop this death rattle effect. Like, anything with an ability on your opponent's side of the board is as good as silence. It's just going to take a turn, right? It's just like a one-turn delayed silence. And your opponent may actually silence it immediately just so that they can play more minions the next turn without that getting silenced too. Like, the silencing all minions heavily disproportionately affects your opponent's stuff because you get to determine when you put this on the board. And your opponents already have played their previous turn. Okay. So that's Showstopper. Don't sleep on this card, guys. This card is going to be so important in this meta. Like, you guys see all the craziness that is going to exist in this meta. Like, this is one of the only neutral cards that is actually going to stop all the craziness. Next card is a 4-mana card, Circus Medic at 116. 4 mana, 3/4, Battlecry, restore 4 health, Corrupt, deal 4 damage instead. So at 116, you are pretty much where a Mad Bomber is. This is where the Escaped Mana Saber is at. Disguised Wanderer. Like, these are where Circus Medic is. You wanna talk about why this card is not a 150 like people want it to be?
Yeah, I think people expected it to be higher, and let's just go through it right now. If you're looking at this as a 4-mana card, right? Like, your first opportunity to play it, first of all, it's understated, significantly so.
It's terrible as a 4-drop.
It gets dominated by basically every single 4-drop, even bad 4-drops, which is like a 4/4, right? So it gets dominated by everything. And are you going to be able to use that 4 heal effectively? Well, only if you have another minion board that you can use it. And if you're using it, you're probably not using all 4. So on curve, it's probably really bad. Really, really bad. Now, once you're able to corrupt it, so you don't use on turn 4. You have to play something with 5 mana on turn 5. That's not a guarantee. Or you wait for much later. And then you can use it as a 4 mana, 3/4, deal 4 damage. Is that good? That's still really good, right? That's still really, really good. Very relevant in the mid and late game as well. But man, it is so awkward and just so bad lots of times on turn 4, such that
it's unplayable. It's like unplayable 90% of the time on turn 4.
Yeah.
More than 90%. You just have to keep holding it. And here's the thing. When you hold a card, you don't have a card. You're playing down a card. Good players win games by making better decisions. You can only make better decisions if you have choices. When you eliminate one of your 5 cards in your hand, you're down 20% choices, which means you can exert your skill 20% less. The algorithm is algorithming all of this, by the way. And it assumes that you are a player that wins 75% of your games. So, this is all holding cards is bad. Being forced to hold a card before it does anything is terrible. And then later on in the game, you may very well have this card and not have 5 mana cards to even play. So, this is, it's a high swing card, right? When things line up, this card is great. But there's a lot of times when things don't line up for this card.
Yep. It just doesn't line up too often. And I see this sentiment shared by a lot of people in Arena HS. I see it in other streamers as card reviews as well. A common response with corrupt mechanics, especially as we're creeping higher into the 4, 5, 6 mana, they're like, well, it's like, of course I would just hold it. It's like, of course I would just hold it, right? Like, that's the way it should be played. You're evaluating it incorrectly because you're just meant to hold it. Okay, do you realize that means you're playing a card down? That's the real question here. If you're assuming that I'm going to more than likely corrupt all of these cards, what you're actually saying is, yes, I'm playing a card down. And if you're not playing a card down, you have to really think about how good this card is on the turn that you're playing it. So this is the problem. And this is why when you see corrupt cards, you might think, well, Blizzard is just ruining the game with all this power creep. Once you get into the actual game, reality is going to hit you really hard once you're actually playing through these situations and you see how hard / awkward it is to corrupt all of these cards that you want to corrupt. It's just not going to happen. And if your goal is to actually corrupt all of these, you're going to find yourself losing a lot because you're actually playing down with all these options. So it's easy to sit here and think, it's like, yeah, of course, I'm going to corrupt this. I'm going to corrupt this. This is going to be easily corruptible, number one. And number two, I'm going to choose to do it. Well, first of all, you might not even get the option, so it might not be easy to do it. And second of all, it's going to be the wrong choice if you're doing it that much. So you're going to not be able to do it, and you're just going to make the wrong choice and cause yourself to lose as well.
Yep. All right. That's Circus Medic. Next, we have 114, basically the same score. It's 2 mana cards where Fairy Dragon lives, some Fairy Protector. It's your 2-drop with a relevant ability. And it is Parade Leader. 2 mana, 3/2. After you summon a Rush minion, give it +2 attack. There are a lot of Rush minions in this game now. A lot of Rush minions. This is a relevant ability. It's not a great ability, but it is a relevant ability. And keep in mind, it's for one, in case it matters, it's on summon, not on play. So it captures a little bit more.
Yeah, look, this is the standard Blizzard thing of printing 2 and 3 drops with beneficial effects and vanilla stats. Nothing new. You play Rush minions. There's plenty of Rush minions now, so it's quite relevant, but yeah, easily taken care of. So the score is what it is.
Yep. Moving on. Next, we have an interesting card. 5 mana, 112 points. So we are getting closer and closer to Yeti. By the way, we said this before, but Yeti is at 100 exactly. Because a lot of craziness is going on. Okay. This is Derailed Coaster. 5 mana, 3/2. Battlecry, summon a 1/1 rider with Rush for each minion in your hand. Minion.
Yeah.
Also, think about board space.
It would be so insane.
Yeah. So one limit is that it is minions, not spells, not weapons. 2, you do have board space concerns potentially if you have a lot of minions that you're potentially summoning. And we expect you to get 3 or 4 1/1s to pop out, reasonably speaking. And it's just kind of not enough to make this a premium card. But it's still pretty good. Right? You're still dealing damage the way you choose. 3 to 4 damage, and then you have a 3/2 on the board. Like, it's good enough on turn 5 to be a thing, to be an option. It's good enough later on in the game if you just hold it as like a flexible kind of like removal for when you need to deal damage, especially if you're in a class that doesn't have a ping option. It solves problems. But like a lot of these other rush cards that you see that's been printed in the last year, it's pretty fair on the tempo side. I don't know if there's weird constructed combos with it or whatever. Obviously, it does combo quite well with this Parade Leader that we just talked about before, because it would give all of your 1/1 summons an additional +2 attack. But combos aside, it's a nice serviceable minion. You'll take it over a Yeti, but it's not like going to be like a super premium card.
Yeah. So this is one of those cards in which I think some people might think that it's too low. Some people might think it's a little bit high, which is when I look at it, I'm like, yeah, you're going to get conservatively 3, sometimes 4, but the 3/2 body doesn't really do that much, right? Like there's a pretty decent difference between like a 3/2 body and a 3/3 body. So the initial body from it is not great, but flexibility is really good whenever you're trying to remove, and you can still play this on an empty board as well, because you can just play a 3/2 with some 1/1s attached to it. So it's fine. It's just, if you look at all the other initiative removal things that are in the meta now, this isn't doing anything that you're lacking, and it just doesn't do it as well as other cards. So that's why the score is what it is.
All right. Next, we have a card that people have talked about a lot, but we don't think is that good. It's 111 points. Fleethoof Pearltusk. 5 mana, 4/4 rush. Corrupt. Gain +4/+4, which makes it an 8/8 rush for 5 mana. I think a lot of people just kind of assume that it'll be somewhat easily corrupted. And this is actually a very hard card to corrupt. There are not that many 6 mana cards in the game. A lot of the 6 mana cards in the game are not cards that you can just play whenever. They need certain conditions to happen because they're so freaking complicated, and then you can do stuff then. And until then, this card is a 5 mana 4/4 rush, which is kind of terrible. Not unplayable. I think once you play with this card, you will realize the percentage of times that you actually just play it as a 5 mana 4/4 rush. Because you have to. Or that it's just been a dead card in your hand for like 4 turns, and you're like, what the hell's going on? And that's what's going to hurt it. When it goes off, but its chances of going off is actually quite low. It's still better than a Yeti, but it's a swing card.
The problem I'm going to have with this card is I think I'm going to have a lot of people tweeting at me, telling me I'm so off on Pearltusk because they've been beaten by it so many times. It's the Death Knight scenario
Yes.
again, where you remember the times that they play Death Knight because they are able to play Death Knight. You don't remember the times that it is stuck in their hand and they can't do anything with it, and then they just die. So your idea of the Death Knight is so much worse than what the Death Knight is. Same thing with Pearltusk as well. Is it going to beat you a number of times? Yes, it is. It's a neutral common card. So yes, people are going to hold it in their hand. They're going to beat you with it. But when you play with it, even when you get a good Pearltusk, remember how, number one, lucky you were that things worked out, or number two, exactly the sacrifices you had to make in order to make it a 5-mana 8/8. And here's the thing, once again, so you don't play on turn 5, right? And then on turn 6, the earliest that you can play it, you need to have a 6-mana card. The chances of you having exactly a 6-mana card on 6 are not exactly super duper high. This is also something that people assume. They're just like, okay, look, Merps, I got you. I understand. I have to wait until the very next turn, and then on turn 7, I can 100% play it if I choose to. No, dude. You are assuming that on turn 6, you always have a 6-mana card. This is one of those assumptions
that you also want to play on turn 6.
That you also want to play it. That you also want to play / you need to play / you can't. You're not playing that Frostbolt that you need to play to remove that thing that has to die on the other side of the board. Something like that. So, if we are taking all of this into consideration, and the fact that a 5-mana 4/4 rush is not good. It's not good. Some people are also being like, well, that's acceptable. It's not acceptable. It's not good.
It's bad.
Yes. So, when you take all of these scenarios all together, and you're looking at in your dream state, yes, you play the 6-mana card that you magically have in your hand, not super high. That you want to play, not super high. And then on turn 7, you play this with a hero power that you wanted to hero power, / a 2-mana card that you wanted to do. Then you get a 5-mana 8/8. Otherwise, it is a 7-mana 8/8 rush, which is great still, but not game-breaking like a 5-mana 8/8. You have to put all these things together.
Yeah.
And if you're not thinking of it in this way, then you have to. And I understand some of you guys still won't get it. And some of you guys will tell me, I lose to this card all the time. And yes, you will. You will lose to this card all the time. That doesn't mean that it's great, because you won't see the amount of times that it is stuck in their hands. But I'm prepared for all the criticism.
This is the Death Knight scenario too, right? Everybody was complaining so hard about Death Knights. And I'm like, I beat Death Knights when they come out at some decent percentage of the time. I wouldn't say I'm favored. But I'm sure that there's been plenty of times that the Death Knights have been just stuck in people's hands, and I've just beaten them. Like, you know, this scenario's happened enough, and Fleethoof is definitely in that scenario. Now, there's people in chat already saying this. I know that this was going to come up. Claw Machine was our number 1 rated card at 230, and it is a 6-mana, and it is a neutral, and it is a card everybody has access to. So you may think, well, I'm going to have Claw Machines and I'm going to play it. One, there's not other 6-mana cards. It's kind of just Claw Machine. 2, there's no offering bonus. Oh, so one more thing that I didn't cover, but we assume there's no offering bonus because there wasn't one in the last expansion. If there is an offering bonus, these numbers are going to change a little. But still, the other thing to know about Claw Machine is that it's not really a 6-drop. Like, it's kind of a 6-drop, but you're not getting really good value with it on turn 6 many times, because you have to be able to deal 6 damage to something, or roughly 6 damage for it to be worth it. If you're using a Claw Machine to remove a 3/3, you've just lost a ton of value on the Claw Machine, so that the next turn you can play this Fleethoof, and then you have another 2 mana you need to do something else with. Right? Like, it's not too worth it. And that's if you have everything kind of like pieced together in your hand. Like, just compare this. This is a 111, right? Remember this other card we just talked about? Circus Medic? Circus Medic was a 116. Circus Medic is higher. Is a 4 mana deal 4 damage and summon a 3/4 better than a 5 mana 8/8 rush? No, it is not. But Circus Medic is more playable later on without having to be corrupted, and there are so many 5 mana cards that you play compared to 6 mana cards you play. Like, the difference is astounding. The amount of 5 mana cards you'll play in a game and the amount of 6 mana cards you'll play in a game. It's really, it makes it so much more flexible to be able to be corrupted on 5 mana cards.
This is also another aspect that people don't understand. They're like, oh, it's a little bit harder to corrupt 4 than 3. It's a little bit harder / the same step. It's like exponentially.
It's super hard. Yeah.
And by the way, your expectations for what someone can do on 5 mana versus 6, like, so what you are doing effectively on 7 mana, the game's wide open now. So yes, this is a great effect, but like the game is supposed to kind of be grand and really, like huge effects should happen at that point. So when you look at stuff like Pearltusk, you also want to think, do you ever keep Pearltusk in your hand? No. Okay. Are you ever keeping 6s in your hand? No. Great. And if you're keeping Pearltusk plus a 6-drop in your hand, we can't have a discussion. Okay. We literally can't have a discussion. But so once again, you look at these scenarios in which you're drawing, the Pearltusk, and you're drawing a higher mana card, and then you have to play the higher mana card. It's really hard. I can't put this into people's heads enough how hard it is to corrupt it, because you have to play it when you want to play it. And if you're playing a 6 mana card in a suboptimal situation, you have to subtract that from the value of this card. Yep. These are things you have to internalize about it. And if you see me getting frustrated, it's because I know, like, I'm looking at people's evaluations of this card. I'm like, you don't get it. Like, this is not as good as you think it is because of all these costs. The reason that Blizzard is so okay giving you +4/+4 is the cost is huge here. And like, just wait, guys. If you think it's that good, and once again, 111 is not bad, right?
No.
Like, this isn't trash. This
Scarlet Crusader's here. Supreme Abyssal's here. Bog Creeper's here.
Yeah. It's hard. Very hard. I'll end it at that.
All right. Next up, Safety Inspector, 108 points. We dropped a little, but still generally the same area. This is about where Raptor lives, by the way, about 107. We have a little bit heightened 2-drops right now. We're considering whether we want to do something or not, but we're going to roll with this for now. You may see in 2 weeks something comes up that just like slams down all the 2-drops. That may happen. But anyway, for now, Safety Inspector. Battlecry, shuffle. It's a 1 mana 1/3. Battlecry, shuffle the lowest card from your hand into your deck. Draw a card. So this is going to be a very interesting card. I'm going to lay out 3 scenarios of which you will use this card. First scenario, you start first. You have a 1 mana 1/3. You play it, and it discards your 2-drop, and you're screwed. Now, that's not so good. This card is not so good in that scenario. Do not think that that's where this card is getting its like totally reasonable, better than Yeti kind of level from that scenario. No. Now, if you go first and you don't have a 2-drop, no harm, no foul, right? If you go first and so it's not even like every time you go first, this card is terrible to have in the beginning. Anyway, next scenario, you go second. You play your Safety Inspector on turn 1. You discard your coin and change that to a card. And remember, cards are better than coins, especially because this is not Curvestone right now. Like, if you Safety Inspector, and then even if you have to hero power, like, it's not going to be too terrible for you because you have so many catch-up mechanics and so much initiative in this meta. But you get to turn your coin into an extra card, which will be very, very useful later, and you get an extra draw into your 2-drop that you want anyway, right? So overall, pretty good if you have the coin. Now, 3, the much, much, much more likely scenario of Safety Inspector is you do not have it in your opening hand because you only have 4 or 5 cards in your opening hand, and you're going to draw like 20 cards over the course of the game. So just statistically, you're not going to get it early on. Later on, a 1 mana 1/3 would normally be absolutely terrible, but now you get to ditch some raptor or other crap that you don't really need, and instead you get to fish for an answer and also get a card that will be, on average, significantly larger. That's where Safety Inspector shines. That's the majority use case scenario. So that is my full breakdown of why Safety Inspector is actually kind of a good card, even though you look at it and you're like, oh no, I'm going to shuffle my 2-drop away and not curve out.
Interesting. I didn't think so much about this. Thank you for that.
This was not an easy card to algorithm, by the way, in case it wasn't obvious. When the coin becomes so important, it does a lot of things.
Yeah, it's okay. All right. I don't exactly know what to think of it. On to the next one.
QWE says, so do you mulligan this away if it's in your starting hand? If you're going first and you don't have a lot of 2-drops, I would consider mulliganing this away, especially if you have other 1-drops. If you're going second, I would never mulligan this away unless I'm facing like a paladin or just someone that's like really going to tempo out against me and like destroy me with their tempo. Because being able to change a coin for a card and have a 1-drop is so good.
Okay. All right.
Next up is Prize Vendor, 2-mana, 2/3 Murloc, Battlecry, both player draws a card. It's basically a croc. It's like a little bit better than a croc. I don't know if there's anything else to say about it.
You get to use the card first.
Yeah.
So
unless you're playing it on turn 2.
Right. Unless you're playing on turn 2. But if you are... So one of the scenarios that people like to think about is, well, what if you're ahead and you don't want them to draw a card? Don't play this card. Boom.
Yeah, you're in control. All right.
So that's it.
Yep. Next card, Optimistic Ogre, 101. It's 1 point above it, Chillwind Yeti. It is a 5-mana, 6/7. 50%.
I love the flavor of this.
Huh?
I love the flavor of this. 50% chance to attack the correct enemy.
They just changed the way it was worded, okay? It's the same card as all the other ogres you've played and hated.
Oh, it's fantastic. I love it. Look, not much to say about this one. We've seen this effect before. You trade stats for uncertain, outcomes, but it's very optimistic that it'll work. So that's the good thing about it.
At least they fixed it. Remember the last one that wasn't fixed and so it would always fall asleep?
Yeah.
I knew it was sleeping more than it should have. All right,
yeah.
well...
But at least this one always gets to attack. You
That's
just don't
true.
know when it's attacking.
That's true. Even if it hits face, it's dealing 6 damage to the face, right? That's pretty good.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Next up, we're at 97. This is down pretty low now at this point. We're below all our normal curve cards. We are a couple points below like where Yetis and Spider Tangs and Raptors and Crocs are. I think we're still above a Boulder Fist Ogre. Yeah, we're still above a Boulder Fist Ogre. Okay, this is Wriggling Horror, 2-mana, 2/1. Battlecry, give adjacent minions +1/+1. It is Mini Fungomancer.
Yeah, mini in many ways. If you just look at this card, yes, it's like less than half the cost. You're getting a little bit less stats, but you're like, oh, the ratio of stats is fine. It just doesn't work out. First of all, it's not good on turn 2, as in it's terrible on turn 2, as in it's really, really bad on turn 2.
Do not play this on turn 2.
Yeah, and Fungomancer, +2/+2, matters a lot more than +1/+1. Fungomancer just hit that sweet spot where you got just the right amount of buffs on just the best turn, and the fact that during that meta as well, there weren't many good 5s, and you wanted your 5 to continue your effect, and it was just fantastic. Fungomancer was, it was just great stats, a product of the meta as well. If you guys are curious, Defender of Argus is around a 92, so this is slightly better than Defender of Argus. Because it is half as cheap for you don't get the taunt, but you get the stats. But this is just bad for turn 2, and the effect it's not enough. That's why it's a 97.
Yeah, and if you're wondering what a Fungomancer is not amazing. Like, you guys are remembering Fungomancer before Year of the Dragon existed. Like,
yeah.
Fungalmancer these days is nothing to write home about. I think it will be like a 120 or a 130 at most.
Yeah. So
So
look, is this better than Argus? Yeah, it's better than Argus by like 5 points, which is not nothing.
yeah, and Argus gives taunt, so it's kind of like a different animal.
Yeah, like the taunt effect is more relevant, I would say, than the stats.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. Like stats these days just aren't what they used to be. Especially when you're buffing +1 health. Like you have to really hit that breakpoint.
Yep.
All right, next up is Horrendous Growth. Horrendous Growth, 2 mana, 2/2. Corrupt, gain +1/+1. Can be corrupted endlessly.
I just remember Dreads' stream where he looked at this card and the first thing he said was, "Remember ADWCTA's beard?" That's fantastic. That was the best part of Dreads' review. It was great. I forgot what score he gave it. I think he thought it was decent, so we disagree with that. But highly agree with his analysis.
Well, okay. I mean, I don't know what he meant by decent, but like we have it where like Ancient Brewmaster is. Like you don't want it in your deck, but you're not like dying because of it.
Right. We're at the point now where people look at 90, and it's just because the power of cards has stretched the tier list to such a high degree. So if you guys are thinking a lot of it is like it's all our doing, it's not just all our doing. Some of it also has to do with what Blizzard has done recently and how we have had to stretch the tier list because of that as well. But Horrendous Growth, is it a good card? No. And once again, you can look at all these scenarios where, oh man, it could be corrupted so much. Once again, you're not playing the card. And on turn 2, it's just really bad. A 2 mana 2/2 is really bad. If you guys didn't know, you should know if you listen to this podcast and if you watch our stream. So, okay, you play a 3 mana card, it gets corrupted. You play another card, it gets corrupted. Great. At a certain point, if you're playing like a 2 mana 4/4 on turn 5, is it that good? No, it really isn't.
Oh, no one's thinking about that. They're thinking about turn 10, 2 mana, like 12/12.
Oh, okay. So you've been playing a card down for 12 turns. Understandable. Well, okay. In that case, yes, it is amazing. And congrats to you for playing 12 turns a card down. It's just not good. I have seen some people think that it is like above average or like even average. It's not. It's just not good.
All right. Next up, we have 88. Fantastic Firebird. 4 mana, 3/5 elemental with Wind Fury.
Okay, look, this is a card that I definitely wanted it to be a little bit higher. All right, we talked about this. I like this card. I think it's fine. Is it breaking the game? No, it's not breaking the game. It definitely gets penalized for not having like 4 attack instead of 5 attack.
Yes.
I mean, yeah. Like,
hugely.
Hugely it gets penalized for that. It's an elemental, which matters in some classes. We'll see with the mage. But it's like 10 points worse than a Yeti. I think, like, personally, I would put it a little bit closer to a Yeti because I like Wind Fury, okay? I like the effect. It is what it is.
Yeah, it'll survive if you play it on curve, most likely, but it may not survive with enough health to actually Wind Fury anything besides your face. Later on in the game, it's like 4 mana 6/5 when it comes to dealing damage to someone's face, which is good, but again, you're a late game at that point. It kind of like it comes together and it's somewhat useful in every step of the game, but it never like you never pop off with this card, right? Like it's still like a super normal card. But I think the fact that they're willing to like print this card is what's really interesting. Because remember when Wind Fury used to be like a 4 or 5 Wind Fury was 6 mana. Right? So we've come a long way for Wind Fury. And Wind Fury is just kind of like not that great. It does have some interesting applications with buffs though. So you put it up, you can't get removed, and then boom, you Blessing of Kings it, or sorry, not Blessing of Kings, Blessing of Authority it. And it's kind of GG for your opponent. But In normal circumstances, it's okay. It's around where like a Boulder Fist Ogre is, significantly below a Yeti, around where like a Twilight Drake is. All right, finally, this is the last card in this set that we're calling like playable. Below this line is kind of like we're calling it just bad cards, right? And we have to draw an arbitrary line, but here is 86. We decided to include Strongman in this playable set, even though I'm not so sure it's the best categorization for this card. Strongman is, people think it's an amazing card. I've heard so much like stories about it, and like not from people who've actually played it, of course, but from people just like looking at it and saying, "Oh my god, 0 mana 6/6." So it's a 7 mana 6/6 taunt, which is not good. But then if you corrupt it, it's free, which is really good. So the question is, how many 8 mana plus cards are you going to have in your deck? And are you going to save them to play until you get your Strongman in your hand? And if your Strongman's in your hand, are you going to play it for 7 mana, or are you going to just keep holding it and be a card down? And
this is a card that people are going to have mixed feelings about. I'm looking at chat right now. I will say predominantly the arena streamers who are here have expressed their thoughts that this is not a good card. Because if you play arena and you know kind of how the game goes, you have a feel for it, and you're not just Twitch chat, which auto corrupts everything, okay? And you have also internalized the fact that all the big dragons are gone. So the thing about dragons leaving is not just the fact that you're not drafting tyrants.
Okay, there's one dragon left in Plague Proto Drake.
Great. But what you're not doing is you're not discovering dragons from those small discover effects.
Yup.
That's key. So all of those small discovers, the explorers, right? Like primordial explorers and all of those small dragons, small discover effects that you're using to discover the tyrant, discover the Onyxia, discover the Dragon Queen Alexstrasza, those are gone as well. So not only is the Strongman corrupt effect hard to do in any meta, if you are used to playing the arena in the past year plus, your expectations for how easy it is to corrupt this, you have to change that. It's become much harder because of all of those small cards generating big cards that you naturally want to play, the Twin Tyrants and the Onyxias and the Dragon Queen Alexstrazzas, etc., such that this is really bad. Really, really bad. And is it going to tilt you like Pearltusk is going to tilt you? Yes, it's going to tilt you, definitely. People are going to use it against you, and you're going to lose because of it. Is it good design? No, I don't like the amount of swing that it is going to make.
Yeah.
But does that mean it's good? It's not good.
Yeah, this is where like Silverhand Knight is and where like Senjin is. So when Merp says it's bad, don't take it to mean it's absolutely unplayable. No. It's just subpar. Like, you don't really want a Senjin in your deck these days. But you'll live with it, you know? Like, it's not like a Fen Creeper, right? Like, and you'll kind of live with a Fen Creeper too. So yeah. So that's where we are.
We're at the point where your average card in the deck is around a 120. So you can still...
It's probably larger than a 120.
Yeah, it's probably larger. And so when people still think of, for example, Senjin as a good card, it's like, oh, this is one of the like decent cards in my deck. Senjin sucks. No. As in, you'll draft it sometimes, but you should not look at it in terms of this is one of the better cards in my deck. Senjin now, with the expansions and the power creep and the power level of all the cards, it's a bad card in your deck now. So if you haven't caught up to that as well, you need to catch up to that. There's a lot of adjustments that we need to be making. And a lot of, if you're coming back and you're thinking, wait, this is as good as a Senjin. Yes, and Senjin is bad now, especially when compared to the rest of your deck.
Yep. So I'm going to list out every single neutral card that is 8 mana or above that we rate better than this card here. This card. It's an Eldritch Horror, which we rate at 50. It's an 8 mana 6/10. Like I said, the big cards that are not great have really taken a tumble in our new thing, because you don't want to be spending 8 mana and doing this. 8 mana, 6/10. So every card in neutral is better than an 8 mana, 6/10 that is 8, 9, or 10 mana. Okay? I'm gonna show this to you. I'm gonna go to every single one. This is I'm not skipping any of them. Supreme Abyssal, 8 mana, 12/12, right, at 110, right? All right, we're off to a good start. That means there's no 8 mana cards rated below 110 and 50, by the way. Okay, and now we got Scrapyard Colossus. It's not common, it's rare, but it's a good 10 mana card. 7/7 taunt with another 7/7 taunt behind it, and then you're going to have the Darkmoon Rabbit that we talked about before, which is the 10 mana card. And then you're going to have Proto Drake, right? The good 8 mana card that everyone's thinking about. And then you're going to have another epic card of Carnival Clown, which is 9 mana. And remember, epics are seen at a quarter of the time of commons. And that's it. There are no other cards in this game that is neutral, that fits these. So the rest of them are all going to have to be class cards. And you could think about how many class cards you actually put in your deck that's 8 mana and above. And it's not. It's just not going to trigger that often at all. I mean, that being said, a 7 mana 6/6 con is not the end of the world, which is why it's like that high, actually. All right. That's it for this one. This has been long, but that is all the playable neutral cards in the middle zone. We talked a lot about corruption. Hopefully you learned a lot about how corruption is expected to work in this new meta, and when it'll be good, when it'll be bad, how swingy it is, how not to rely on it in many circumstances. But if you do get to it, yeah, you can really take advantage and come out with a swing turn.
All right. Wow, this is a long one. Let us thank our viewers, okay? The people who are watching this. Give us a smile in the chat if you're here, if you're enjoying this content. All right. But thank you guys for watching this. We go for a long time. I have no idea why you guys watch this. Maybe it's just to troll us, and we appreciate that. So thank you guys for watching this, whether it's on Twitch or it's on YouTube. We appreciate that we have an audience to basically project this nonsense to, and thank you guys.
Yeah. Also, I want to add a special thanks to two people who are not watching this right now, and that is Natasha 4P and Connie, brand new, who are Merps and my wife, respectively. And they've really put up a lot, probably, I assume, with 4P. I don't know. I know Brand New's put up a lot with me being basically absent for the last week doing stuff with the algorithm and things. And just thank you very much. And I'm also doing the shout out, so she will make me cookies later. Brand New also made the art for this. I'm gonna switch the views if you're watching this on video. So like this little button over here, like that's her work, and she does a new one for each expansion based on the card back that expansion comes with. All right, well, we're gonna come back with the next part, and the next part is going to be bad cards, and it's going to be interesting because these are some of the most interesting bad cards that I've ever seen in a set, actually. So normally we don't care about when it gets to this low of a score, but for this set we kind of do. All right, until then, this is ADWCTA.
This is Merp. See you guys.